My parents separated when I was young. That did have a sort of profound effect on the way I saw, the rest of my life, and it's really informed how I act as a father today.
Welcome back to the Parentpreneur Show, where I have the great pleasure in introducing Alessio Cirillo, who not only is a great guy, he is a man who has been working in the financial services in the investment management industry for over 15 years and is currently in the Middle East, in Dubai, works for Al Dhabi Capital in Abu Dhabi. Have I got all that correct? And he is very much what I
Bang
would
on.
call,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's very much what I'd call an entrepreneur. So Alessio's already stepped into an already established business, and he's backed by the company's available resources. But there he flows and he develops open-ended ideas and turns them into real-world products and services for the customers, for the clientele of Al Dhabi Capital. Mate, thank you very much for being on the show. This as we said before we hit kind of record, is going to become just like our usual sort of conversations and coffee chats. I've known you for crikey, I don't know how long now, and it's always a pleasure. And you very much a brother by another mother, as far as I'm concerned. Um, I'm going to kick off with this one because I think this is quite a funny way of introducing you to the audience, the people listening, people watching. Um, Italian dad,
Yeah.
English mom, Peruvian wife, living in Dubai. Is it fair to say you don't do plain vanilla?
Yeah, I just never like to make my life easy for myself. But firstly, thank you for the very kind introduction. And by the way, everything you said is, as you know, reciprocated, more than mutual, and we go back a long way. And I'm very happy to do this. Yeah, I have an Italian father. I have an English mother. I grew up in a so I think I always kind of felt slightly out of place when I was growing up. It's difficult having this English accent, being called Alessio Pietro Cirillo, having the most stereotypical Italian father, and a very sort of stereotypical English mother, and sort of not really knowing, I guess, having sort of some kind of identity crisis when you're younger. But then, yes, as you say, I met my wife Carmen. I think it was about 11 or 12 years ago. So I married a Peruvian, and my mixed daughter, who is Peruvian Italian. She has a British and Italian citizenship. She speaks Spanish. She's also learning Arabic. We live in Dubai. There's nothing quite, I guess, there's nothing sort of very, what's the word, conventional, I would say, about our life. But however, where we live, this is very conventional. Her friends are, Greek, Nigerian, or Lebanese, French, or it's so. That's the interesting thing about the kids growing up here. It's like the concept of like nationality and identity is just it's almost like it's irrelevant to them.
Yeah.
So they're more interested in just like the latest computer games and fashion and stuff like that. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
I don't think it's any coincidence you ended up in sort of quite a contrarian sort of culture, because like you said, where we met, where I live, where you were born and raised is quintessentially English. It's very quaint, old fashioned and stuff like that. And I think of all the people I know, you are the most thoughtful, not in the sense that you buy me flowers and chocolate, but in the sense that you think a lot, and
Is that a
you
hint?
it wouldn't go amiss. um but I do think that you are a very thoughtful person. You're very mindful. Perhaps mindful is a better word. And you are also one of the most well read and eclectic read people I know as well. I think that makes you a heck of an interesting person and a heck of an interesting father as well, because of what you bring to the party. So throwing into the mix there, as you said, of this sort of multicultural, multi-dimensional environment that is Dubai, I think you've got a unique opportunity to kind of fully express yourself as not just as an entrepreneur, but as a parent as well for Valentina. What do you reckon the kind of starting point was? Where do you kind of think that contrarian seed was planted in your head?
Wow, what a great question. I think you're right about sort of growing up in Marlow. It is so quintessentially English, and I mean, and it's a beautiful place. I think moving to Dubai has really, to be honest, it's helped me flourish. And not just as a father, but just professionally and as a person as well. It kind of goes back to that thing where my name is not important here. My background is not important here. It doesn't really matter, and I like that. I like the fact that I'm not important. Nothing about me is really actually special at all here. I'm just like every other parent here who is of a different nationality, from a different place, speaks different languages. I like that. Where I don't know where that sort of where that kind of where that started, that sort of contrarian root came from. Perhaps it came from my sort of upbringing, I guess, right? I mean, so my parents separated when I was young. I think there's been countless books and TED Talks on absent fathers and incarceration rates in the US. So I won't go down that road, and there's a lot of trauma we could bring up there, but I think probably that did have a sort of profound effect on the way I saw the rest of my life, and it's really informed how I act as a father today. So every parent says this, right? It's cliche as it comes, but we try desperately not to repeat the mistakes of our parents.
Yeah.
But I can say, I think from the day that my daughter was born, it was just like it was just like it was like an awakening, like all that trauma suddenly just came up with inside me, and I was like, okay, I've either got to become I'm either going to carry on being this guy that I was in my 20s, which is just like basically not very responsible, a bit all over the place, or I can take everything that I've learned and try and become the best possible role model for my daughter. So yeah, I don't know if I answered that very well, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight into
Yeah.
my
No, I think with the arrival of a child comes great responsibility, and also it's quite exciting as well. I know when Thomas, my eldest, arrived, I had all of these pre kind of prescribed sort of plans and ideas of how I would be as a dad.
yeah.
But I think it's a bit like it's Mike Tyson, isn't it, who said everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. um so yeah, as soon as the first one arrives, you're like, oh shit, that's not going to work at all. And then that doesn't take into account the fact that they are their own little people in their own rights, with personalities who don't necessarily want to do things the way dad's expecting it. What kind of challenges have you encountered in terms of trying to steer and shepherd as a dad, and what kind of pushbacks have you had, and have you had any sort of like lessons out of that, or aha moments? Because I go on.
To be honest, I think what you just said there before kind of it segues nicely into that. The fact that you have expectations, right? When you're about to become a father, you think like they're going to be maybe a little version of you, or at least half like you, or some bizarre sort of preconception you have, and turns out that they're completely fucking different to you. They have their own views. They're, and in my case, my daughter is completely different to how I was as a child. I was actually quite I had terrible like concentration. I was like very sporty. I couldn't sit still. I was hyperactive all the time. I mean, I'm still a little bit like that, but things I can calm myself down a little bit now. My daughter is the opposite. She's very calm. She's very studious. She's very cerebral in that sense. So it's I think having those preconceptions is definitely, it's not the wrong thing to have, but it will definitely pose a barrier as to how you're going to sort of continue raising your kids sort of going forward. But yeah, it's every day. I think it's, again, cliche as it sounds, you take every day as it comes. And you have to just be completely open-minded about what that day is going to bring. My daughter's 9 now, and for the first time 2 days ago, I took her to school. She decided not to talk to me, like in the car, and she's just literally got the hump with me. And it's the first time I've ever had to deal with that. And you've going back to that, what we're saying, you've got that expectation that my child is always going to have a nice conversation with me on the way to school, and suddenly, boom, they're in a foul mood with you for absolutely no reason. It's like, how do I deal with this? And it cut me, it hurt me a lot,
Yeah.
And it was like, it's okay, it's part of it's a journey, right? It's not a destination. It's just like, just keep going, take these things as they come. So I guess probably in summary, it's just having a completely open mind, and trying to go with the flow as much as you can, and realizing you cannot control anything. You just have to just give a little nudge this direction, just keep pushing them until they're going on the sort of what you think is the right path.
Just constant little iterations, like an aeroplane, isn't it? When it's sort of constantly adjusting course. That's actually really interesting. Yeah, similar things happen quite recently now. It used to be that well, because our children went to the same school.
Yeah.
And the car park, you park up and then you'd
exactly.
walk the kids to the gate. And these days it's like, no, you're okay, just drop us off, Dad, just drop us off. And it's like literally like a parachute jump. It's like, doors open, flying out with their rucksacks on, bye. And you're kind of thinking, well, okay, that's what you kind of want for them, isn't it? You don't want them to be clinging onto your leg and sort of crying as they go through the school gate. So I guess that's a positive. Not quite sure how I'm going to deal with my daughter when she starts having the hump with me, because she'll be off the scale with it. But so I touched on at the top of the show about you being out there and your work with Al Dhabi Capital. Tell me a bit more about it. What do you do, and what's it like being in that environment?
Yeah. So my background is all asset management or investment management, depending on which side of the pond you come from and how you define it. So I've worked for big blue chip American organizations for most of my life. And then I moved to Al Dhabi Capital last year. Essentially a hedge fund, Dubai to Abu Dhabi every day, which is not a short journey, to put it that way. So my background is essentially, I'm the head of sales, and I am responsible for basically raising capital for the organization. So we have a GCC focused equity strategy. So essentially, we're investing in companies which are listed on the stock exchanges of Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and then Saudi Arabia. We put it into a portfolio, an investment structure, which is easy for clients to invest in. And then they invest. We manage their money for them, and hopefully they're happy and they make a lot of money. So my job is actually not the complicated part. It's the taking people, investors out who have lots of money, and and
Just run that
whining and
last bit
dining
past
them
me again. You just dropped.
until they decide to make money.
Just run
Okay,
that
you can
last.
hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, you just dropped out there. Just run that last bit through, and the magic technical elves will tide it up. So just run through that last
Yeah.
part again. Bear with me. I'm just going to pause the recording now.
Okay, we can just do the. I can answer again if you.
Go. Cool. So
Yeah.
you tell me about your sort of work and how what in terms of practicalities as well, and what you actually do day to day.
Yeah, sure. So my background is all asset management or investment management. I've been doing that since about 2007. I've worked predominantly for American blue chip asset managers. And then last year I moved to Al Dhabi Capital, which is essentially a hedge fund based in Abu Dhabi. So I'm doing the long commute from Dubai to Abu Dhabi every day, which is like nearly a 4-hour round trip at the moment. My job is essentially I'm head of sales. So my job is essentially investor relations. I'm out there to try and raise capital for the funds. So the funds are essentially like a basket of publicly traded equities, which are traded on the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange, Dubai, and Saudi Arabian Stock Exchange as well. So put it in a nice investment vehicle, which investors can then come in, put their money in. We manage it for them, try and make them money, and make them happy. So I'm not actually on the investment side. That's all the smart people that do that. I'm just basically the guy who takes people with lots of money out for dinner and
The the glamorous end.
checks.
It's the glamorous end of the business, and and I know this for a fact that without the selling bit, which is effectively what you're doing, there is no business for the clever guys in the back office. So yeah, don't do yourself down.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, someone's got to do it. It's a dirty job eating in
Yeah,
five-star restaurants every day, but hey. So, what have you learnt from your work life that you kind of bring to bear upon sort of parenting, or vice versa? Are there sort of common threads between the two worlds, or are they really quite distinct?
Well, my job is essentially dealing with people day in and day out, right? So dealing with people, as you know, requires a great deal of get people's money and into the fund. That requires a lot of trust and definitely a lot of patience. So like I think honestly the answer is when I come home, the last thing I want to do is be patient and be a nice person. But I think the good thing about practicing, I think, conversation with clients is then I have very sort of long ongoing chats with my daughter, like very open. I want her to be like a gregarious kind of animal. I want her to be able to just interact and socialize like the way I do with my clients. I just go out and having an honest conversation. So I want her to feel that she can do that as well. I think one thing I've learned from my work is probably time spent with people as well. How much time you put in, and what the quality of what you put into people is what you get out of it as well, right? So that I think every salesperson knows that it's don't spread yourself too thin. Really target those really quality clients, those quality investors, and nurture those relationships. And
I'm just so yeah, I was just asking what kind of common threads you take from your work life and bring into your parenting style.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sort of my job is front office, dealing with client relationships all the time. So I'm talking with people, and as you know, with talking with people, you have to have a lot of patience, a great deal of patience. And so I think that's I think when I come home, and and my daughter's like trying to explain something to me which should take 3 seconds, and it goes on for 15 minutes. Luckily it's like, okay, the prefrontal cortex is just saying like, it's all right, she'll get to the end, just be relax, let her talk, let her talk. So I think, just generally, talking with people, having that patience, it's a good sort of transferable skill that you can probably bring back to your child. I One thing I think is also, for me, is like scheduling. It's like, and giving quality time to people. So I think, every salesperson knows that, it's better to have 5 amazing relationships than 2,000 like average relationships, right? So you invest that time and that energy and that commitment into those relationships, and then the fruits start to bear, right, after a while. Equally, that goes with being a parent, right? It's about scheduling time and sitting down and making sure that you're giving that real focus and that energy on the conversation that you're having with your kids.
It's finding that sort of dynamic equilibrium, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
It is. It's challenging. But also, I think the other thing is also like, I didn't come from money. Something, and now, having, worked in my industry for nearly 17, 18 years, it's another component of the conversation I have with my daughter now, is about learning the value of things, and how to, invest money, and why you should do it, and save for the future, and look after your family. And very interestingly, last night, my daughter, she said to me, I was actually probably a little bit mean, she was asking about a certain toy she wanted or something, and I just dismissed her straight away, and I was like, you have no idea about the value of money. You've got no idea like how much it takes to, you know fuel this car up, pay this rent, pay for your school, all this kind of stuff. And massive credit to her, she came back to me and she said, Daddy, I know what economics is. And she said, if you've got a notebook shop, you go to the guy who makes the notebooks, you buy it off him for 5 dirhams, and then you sell it for 7 dirhams, and you make 2 dirham profit. And I was like, wow. I was like, okay, so I'm getting a good ROI on my daughter's education right now, because at her age, I wouldn't have had a bloody clue what she was talking about. So like, I was impressed that she's already thinking, in terms of basically the essential components of economics, which is supply and demand, and she gets it straight away.
She's
So
got it straight away. I
yeah,
think that's I think that's fascinating. I think for children as well these days, there's almost it's never been easier. A friend was saying this earlier. It's never been easier to sort of like learn, do, or be something great. But equally, I think that the counterbalance to that is there's also this massive sense of overwhelm, which could leave children feeling helpless. So I think a big challenge for parents is steering that pathway to give them enough knowledge and enough confidence without sort of overwhelming them. I know I struggle with. I've always been. I've never done the kiddie talk. I never did the coochie coos
yeah,
and the or diminutizations or stuff like that. I've always been quite frank and adult in my conversation with the kids.
yeah.
Um, but I sometimes worry that I've made them grow up too much too quickly. How do you think? How do you find a balance between teaching enough, but also letting them have that sort of innocence, like that childhood innocence?
Yeah, well, look, first of all, I don't think you're doing anything wrong with your kids at all. I mean, like Thomas and Savannah, I love them as if they were my kids. They're fantastic children. You guys do an
Thank
amazing
you.
job. I really respect you for that. So, um, but so that's a really tough question. Um, it's almost like I think it goes back to like you can't control them, right? So you're almost like just a guardian watching over them, right? So because they're naturally going to be curious about whatever they're curious about, whatever drives them, what they're like we said, they're their own, they have their own minds, they have their own brains, they have their own desires, their own wants.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you can't stop them from learning about certain things. And particularly Valentina, she's earwigging all the time, listening in, and sometimes we'll just be eating and my wife and I will just be having a conversation, and suddenly you just see this little face going, listening in. And it's like, so she they have that natural curiosity, and you don't want to stifle curiosity, you don't want to stop them
No.
from having that. So I think it's almost just being like a sort of like guardian caretaker type thing. Just if they want to know something which is maybe a little bit too much of a mature theme, maybe give them like 25% of what you should be talking about and have it
Yeah.
watered down a little bit. As they get older, you just increase that a little bit. I think it's almost just comes from an innate feeling about what this child should know at this age, and probably what you wanted to, you remember what it was like being 9 and 10 years old, how much you wanted to know, and just how much kind of satisfied your sort of insatiable curiosity at that age, right? It just comes from a sort of natural, like, I think this is all they need to know, and that will hopefully just shut them up probably for a little bit.
For long enough. Do you know
Yeah.
what though? But your answer just shows what a consummate sort of communicator you are, which I know is very much what you. It's you. How you do anything is how you do everything. Whether we're having a coffee or a beer when we're in the same place, whether you're with a client, whether you're with with your daughter, the way you communicate is, like I said before, very mindful. You're very, very, I was going to say conscious, but it's the wrong word because I don't think you are. I think it's subconscious for you. What makes you such a good communicator? Is that learned or is it inherent? Is it the Italian genes?
I I think so. Like, I'll be completely honest. I think when I was actually younger, I was a terrible communicator, and I struggled to get words out. My mind was all over the place. I was completely hyperactive, and I'd be jumping from one thing to another. Um, and I think, by the time I got to, I would say, secondary school, maybe even like beginning of college. I did the international baccalaureate for college, and I remember just being lumped with some really bright people, and I felt completely out of my depth because they were able just to like articulate ideas so beautifully, and I was very jealous of how they could do it.
Yeah.
And so I I thought to myself, I want to be able to express myself like them. And so I just practiced. And I think the only way you can do that is literally by just going and talking to people all the time, being very, very, non-judgmental and open-minded about what they're saying, and just taking it on board, and just trying to learn from what they're saying as well.
Yeah.
And being moldable, what's the word? Not moldable. And that's, I mean, now we're talking about like my ability to express, and now I can't think of the word, but being able to, not be too rigid in your identity and who you are, being able to allow, like, other ideas and thoughts to, guide you sometimes and shape you, and maybe think differently about things. Then it becomes more like a flow, rather than I have to have this very centric view of the world, right? So honestly, it was not natural for me, and it's just come from really trying to practice and be empathetic to who I'm talking to as well.
That's interesting because I wouldn't have put you down as having struggled at it because I think you're quite a natural communicator. You're kind of almost like a storyteller, and I know people who've not met you or who don't know you won't know that you're actually incredibly creative as well. You're very very musical. And do you think that that is something that has helped you? Do you because you speak in a very sort of lyrical way, almost musical. Do you think that that's something, just another expression of that, the music and the communication? Are they two of the same things?
Yeah, I think strangely actually, I think my that was probably how I expressed myself when I was younger, and I wrote some very funny songs when I was actually Valentina's age. And my mum, who you know very well, she'll embarrass me and she'll show you the videos of when I was 9 years old writing really embarrassing songs. But it was how I communicated, how I wanted to express myself. I think it runs in our family a little bit, right? So um, we have a lot of pianists in my family. I always watch my grandmother, who's my hero. So watching her sing and dance and be theatrical, and I always admired that and looked up to her. I think, but there is something probably slightly innate about it. I whatever I try and do, however English and rational and logical I try to be, these hands just still go like this. It's something I cannot help. So why deny it? Just try and complement it with some logical language at the same time, right? So
It's like trying to tie an Italian person's hands up and they suddenly become mute. It's quite funny.
please let me
I think
go.
well, I think it's Latin generally.
Yes.
I think it's kind of there. It's sort of like a natural thing and or nurture because I saw Thomas on the pitch last weekend playing football. He got really really irate with the referee and he went up and he went, ah, he gave it the two, and then I'm just like crying with like laughter on the touchlines and thinking, oh, so it's quite funny. I mean, you've mentioned someone who I think you might give as an answer in this next question, but what or who would you say the sort of the two biggest inspirations are? If there's more than two, great. If not, but who would you say or what have been great inspirations for you?
So in terms of who,
Yeah.
my grandmother has 100% been probably my biggest family inspiration. She's well, you know her as well, and she's just an amazing person. She's would describe herself as a war baby, and so growing up, she taught me that concept of like rationing, stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on, keeping positive, and she lives by that. She's totally optimistic all the time on things. She's very jovial, she's very chatty, she loves to sing. I mean, god, she's what, 86, 87 years old, and she still puts on a choir twice a year and goes and entertains people. I love her to death. She's just an amazing person. So I still to this day I look up to her, but she knows that as well. I tell her a lot.
That's
um
very cool. It's funny while you're thinking of a second. It's quite funny because whenever I see your grandmother coming, I A, look forward to it, and B, know that I need to set aside at least the next 10 minutes to listen to her because it's like great. And the great thing is you come away always with like a little nugget. It might be a nugget of like local history. It might be when the choir is performing next, and if she doesn't see us in the crowd, she'd be really disappointed. It's just really fun. And yeah, you're absolutely right. She does embody that kind of wartime spirit, and but it's always done with good humor, no
yeah,
nonsense, cracking on. Yeah, she's an absolute soldier of a person. She's wonderful.
yeah, She's one of a kind. She is totally one of a kind. She's amazing. I would say that's pretty really my main influence in life. I think, when I was, in terms of probably male role models, strangely enough, you asked the question and this person just came to my head here. So I'm gonna say it because I haven't thought about this person for years,
Yeah.
but I had this rugby teacher at school, and he sticks in my mind because I just remember the encouragement he used to give me, and it wasn't just on the rugby pitch. It was just generally he saw something in me as a person. And I would honestly say that growing up, I didn't have many people like that at all in my life. And he, he would, inspire me. I remember he'd always sort of like, you know, say like, well, if you run out of ideas, give the ball to Alessio and he'll help you. He would always just like compliment me like this, and just gave me that confidence, particularly at an awkward time in my life when I was a teenager and I needed it. So yeah, it's funny. I would never have consciously, I wasn't thinking about him, but he just came up in my head then, and I was like,
Yeah.
maybe I just need to give him a shout out as well. And then there have been, books that have influenced my life as well. So when I was like in my teen years, obviously I got into like Camus, and I suddenly went down like the existentialist route, and suddenly I became like one of these very annoying teenagers who suddenly thought like, oh yes, I've like worked it all out now, I get it, right? Life is meaningless and this is how you live in the present, blah, blah, blah. So but Camus definitely inspired me. Another author that inspired me was a guy called Herman Hesse as well,
Okay.
who's like a Swiss, you know the band Steppenwolf, right?
Yeah.
Steppenwolf, they Born to be Wild, right? Born
Yes.
to So the band is actually named after a book by Herman Hesse called Steppenwolf, and it's all about the sort of the the basic the wolf inside every man, right? So it's like, how do you control that, and how do you tame it? And he was heavily influenced by Eastern philosophy and Eastern wisdom and religion as well. He was massively influenced by Buddhism as well. So he wrote a book called Siddhartha, which is a sort of tale about the Buddha as well. I am obsessed with his writing. To be honest, I think if you haven't read any of his books, it, it's inspiring. I love his books as well. So
I haven't, so I'll A, read that myself, and B, stick it in
yeah,
the show notes for anyone else who's interested in it. But it's interesting you speak about Buddhism, because if I think of one thing that I know you for, it is that
yeah,
you are quite spiritual and you do draw upon Buddhism more than anything else. I think,
yeah,
and you're also one for when you're in this country, for going for long sort of rambling walks through the Chilterns, for example. How important is that sort of side to you in terms of like your spiritual side? How much of that is Alessio?
it's honestly probably not many people who know me know this part of me as well as you do, and who's someone who I can feel I can actually talk about this. But I would say it's fundamental to who I am. It's one of the only things in my life which just resets me, brings me back to, who I am, where I am, what I'm doing. It's water, it's food, it's that essential for me. Um, and I go through periods where I might not practice meditation for some time, and I'm not a good person. I'm not a happy person. As soon as I come back to meditation, and I actually chant when I meditate as well. Um, it it takes me to a higher place, and it's for me it's integral, and I wouldn't be me if I didn't have it. It's very powerful. And I know you're the same as well. I know you have that deep affinity with meditation and spirituality as well. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's you're one of the people I feel like I can I can, you know, open up about this to.
Without being accused of being woo woo. So, well,
Yeah,
it's interesting because you're charismatic. You're a good looking guy, and people kind of almost think of you as a guy's guy and stuff like that. So I think it can be it's quite an antithesis to have that sort of side be so strong in you. I'm a roughy tufty sort of face for radio, grumpy old bastard. So again, it wouldn't be the sort of, I was brought up in a really strict, not strict, but my parents were both very devout Catholics. So in the sense that I appreciate that having a sort of a spiritual discipline is good. I think I've taken that from them, but not necessarily sort of the organized religion side of things. You're quite right. Meditation is a good thing, and I'm a much nicer person even if I give myself just a little short burst in the morning. It's one of those things where, particularly if sort of an entrepreneur, you're busy in the financial world. I'm busy trying to run sort of various entrepreneurial businesses my side, and then raising kids as well. It's tricky. I said to someone recently, it's important for me to have a framework within which to work, and for me, one of those things is, and I've learned this recently, is rather do just a minute of it than not at all. So I've I've kind of fallen off the meditation bandwagon a wee bit over the last month or two, just because it's been so hectic. But I found that just doing a 5 minute sort of mindful sort of meditation, the weather's improving here, so I can walk out. Everyone else is still asleep. I'll be up early before everyone else and stand outside and just sort of like feel the sun, and just take some deep breaths and just center myself. I think is
yeah.
really essential. I know you have that, and I know you read a lot. What other kind of disciplines, what other sort of habits do you try and sort of bring into your daily life, and that you'd hopefully sort of encourage by example or otherwise in your daughter?
Yeah, it's I to be honest, like something I've been thinking about is something that I know you're a big advocate of as well, which is doing journaling as well. Journaling. I want, and this is something I don't do enough of, but it's something I really want is to do like more affirmations as well, because I really strongly believe in the power of that. I think all of us, we have these sort of like we have these sort of like presets in our subconscious which are not helpful, and just are taking us in ways that we're not even aware of most of the time. And so a good reset is just to get those affirmations, daily affirmations going in. So honestly, speaking with you has really given me those ideas, and I really genuinely want to do the journaling, the affirmations more often. I think it's so important. So I try to do that. I'm awful with my diets and keeping fit these days, but recently actually that's changed a lot. I was in Georgia 2 weeks ago, and which is in the Caucasus, and the
Yeah,
food there is outrageously good. And I just came back and I looked on the scale, and I was just horrendous. So I'm desperately, not only doing this for me, but I want my daughter to see, like, okay, let yourself go. You get back to the gym, you eat properly, go for a run.
you
I
you
wish I could cut out alcohol. I really wish I could. I'm trying to cut down on that a lot, but
yeah,
that's another one. I mean, it doesn't help anyone, right? It's not good for you in any way. It's unfortunately, again, so ingrained up here.
yeah,
If you come from an Italian or a British culture, right, it's just wine or beer, and it's your life. There's no escaping it. So I'm trying. I want to do that, but I would say I'd go back to the things that really ground me is my meditation. Doing it once in the morning and once in the evening, just to kind of bookend your day. So
yeah,
start off with the right intentions. When I meditate as well, I don't pray so much, but I try to set the my desires and my wants for me and my family and my friends. Hopefully have some success during the day. By the end of the day, meditate again to reflect on that, and then think, try again tomorrow. And that's how I try to just keep it, kind of bookend and structure my life. If I could get one more meditation in during the middle of the day, that would be great. But that's a hard task.
That's on the wish list. I think that's a great habit and a great behavior to sort of like develop, because by that setting your intentions is wonderful, because you are programming your subconscious, and then by reflecting on the day that you've had, that also encourages like the gratitude. And I think that's something that I'm guilty of. I'm constantly after the next challenge, the next objective, instead of going, do you know what, well done. Even starting the parentpreneur show, for example, this has been on my sort of whiteboard now for months, and I just realized, you know what, it's not gonna make itself. Just shit or get off the pan, as the Australians say. And in doing so, it was incredibly freeing, because what is it? It's people talking about ideas. That's all it is. And I think the more you can share those ideas, the more you can grow as a person. And I think these are all good habits. I try to. I've given up lecturing, because you said at the top of the show, you try not to repeat the habit or the sort of behaviors of people before you. My dad was a great lecturer. I think it was the only kind of way he knew, of imparting knowledge. And I know already my kids are too smart and they just switch off. I'm already getting yeah, whatever, Dad. 7 and 9, I'm already getting the hand. So setting an example is a great way of doing it. If they see, so Savannah, my daughter now, she sees me sitting down and writing 10 things, and they're all in the present tense, and some of them are silly and superficial, or such as, I'm so happy and grateful that I, release weight and maintain 84 kg or better, written in the present tense, written with feeling. I'm actually thinking about them as I write. And then bigger ones as well, bigger goals, helping people with the various businesses. The more people I can help, the better, my life will be, the better my success is. So encouraging them now. I don't know, I don't think it was for a special occasion, she actually made me a new little gratitude journal. She stapled together little bits of paper and she'd put things inside for me to write down and draw a picture here. And so I thought, wow, there we go. Something's going in. Now, one thing I think is quite funny, because I do know you do exercise, because we've done a bit together as well. And I've seen videos on social media. So here's this very spiritual, musical, family loving, financial sort of wizard, and you like hitting things. You love your boxing. So tell me about that, because that's a really interesting dichotomy, I think.
Yeah, it is. You know what, so when I went for my interview with Al Dhabi Capital, the CIO, he's a great guy, comes in and he looks at my CV and doesn't ask me about my qualifications or my work experience. He goes straight to the bottom and it says interest. And the first two things it says is boxing, meditation. And he said, well, this looks like a contradiction. He's like, you seem to be very peaceful or very aggressive. Do I want that kind of person working for me? I don't really understand, what's going on here. And actually, and my response to him was, and it came out at the time, it was like, it's the same thing, right? And what I mean by that is, and you'll know this, Mike, is that the feeling you get when you are in a ring with someone, there's the intensity and the anxiety and the feeling before you go in a ring is unbearable. And then you get in there and suddenly it's like you are living completely and fully in the moment, like you've never lived before.
Yeah.
That is the same feeling as meditation. It's the same thing. It's that feeling of being on earth right now in this moment and being 100% alive. It's that for me, it's exactly the same feeling. It's just it's revealed in two very different ways. One is sitting, doing nothing and chanting, or however you want to do it. One is trying to avoid a fist coming towards your face very quickly. But the outcome is exactly the same. It's that feeling of just being completely alive in that moment. So anyway, but you know, the other side of that is we're also human, right? And we all have stress. And yeah, there is, of course, that very that very base feeling of just wanting to beat the living shit out of someone as well. And we have to get that out of our system, right? And whatever people think these days in this kind of like woke PC world, the fact is I still fundamentally believe that I think men have to release that. I stupid thing to say even these days, that is a controversial thing to say, but in my view, no, I'm sorry, I fundamentally see men very frustrated, get angry. They don't let it out of their system. It ends badly. I'm not saying that women don't as well, but it's just my observation from being around other guys.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think if you don't, it's an inherent part of the male psyche, and it's been what's the word? It's been disenfranchised. You're told not to be that. It's not the civilized thing to do. It's not natural to be physical. And I think what happens is a lot of people, as you say, they internalize it. A lot of men internalize it, and it either comes out as anger or frustration or other sort of compulsive behaviors. We touched on drinking, for example, or it's internalized as illness. And I don't think there's any coincidence that people feel very stressed these days, because it's not cool to say, Jesus, I'd really like to punch that guy in the face right now. It's like or to say, oh wow, I can't come out right now, I'm going to be meditating for the next half an hour. And I think to deny part of your sort of personality, part of your um, being is going to be really quite unhealthy. So I think, yeah, I think it's great that you admit to wanting to hit things.
I think it's I I'm going to completely misquote this, but I think a couple of days ago I saw or heard or read somewhere. I think it might have been Gable Mate or something like that. That he's a very interesting guy, but he was talking about the increase in antidepressants, and he was showing it on a line from going back into the 80s to now, and it was like a ridiculous increase every year on the amount of antidepressants and the increase in depression amongst people. And he was saying, fundamentally, science and medicine has failed human beings against the battle against depression. It doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And I fundamentally believe that I think antidepressants, there is 100% a place for it. Absolutely, I would never say that, but there is something to be said about the fact that for thousands of years we've been agricultural animals out there, on the land plowing and doing an honest day's work.
Yeah.
There is I believe that there is something deep down inside of us that is still craving that kind of that physical aspect of our nature. I think we're bullshitting ourselves if we deny it and say, no, we've changed, we're civilized now. I fundamentally don't believe that at all. I don't feel like that.
No, I agree. Evolution is not that fast. Society, technology, all of that has superseded, at light speed,
Yeah.
any evolution in the human sort of like spirit, the human body, all that sort of stuff. I agree. We're still very innately physical, meat carcasses running around with like something spiritual inside of us. It's yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, same thing with like the medication as well, because this is as you know, with the family, I've got I have this great dilemma about functional medicine like exercise, food, etc., versus pharmaceutical medicine. And I suppose the analogy would be like if you're on an aeroplane and it's about to crash because something's really not working well, stick on a parachute and jump out before that crash happens, and the medication is kind of that parachute, but at some point or another you have to land. You can't walk around with that parachute on all the time, otherwise it's just, well, by its nature, it will slow you down, it will drag you down. So you then have to sort of use it as a segue. There's a place for it, but not it's not a replacement just for common sense and healthy living.
I agree. And I think, there's a lot of, nutrients that we just don't get in our body. I mean, I would say that one of the things that has helped me living actually in the Middle East is the sun, right? Just getting vitamin D on my body every day. That honestly makes me a way more energetic, happy person. It's like something I didn't even think about when I was living in the UK. I was just like, no, I'm fine, it's okay. But the energy I have just getting like sun on my face, and it's a complete different thing. I take magnesium every day as well. I read somewhere that we're just completely lacking in magnesium. We used to get it from the soil and our plants when we were farming. So since I've been taking that, that's helped me a tremendous amount as well. I sleep better. I feel a little bit more positive about things as well. So it's just all these things. I think we can help ourselves. We don't. I think there's not just one magic pill. I think the pill, like you say, can help.
Yeah.
But it's everything else that has to go behind that to really get you through those times, I think.
It's interesting because that kind of sums up your philosophy very well. And I think I mentioned the phrase earlier in conversation that how you do anything is how you do everything, and how you treat your work life, how you treat your self-care, how you treat being a father, being a parent. They are all part and parcel of the same thing. I always sort of talk about the three legs of sort of my milking stool. So self-care, which is the one I'm least careful about. Then there's obviously the entrepreneurial side of things, and then there's being a father and a husband as well. But I think they're all integral, and do you know what? It actually makes life easier if you have a similar philosophy and similar values across all three areas, because you're not having to chop and change personality or change how you approach life. You just approach life with a one size fits all. The simpler it is, the more likely it is to succeed. So
agree. Yeah, totally.
I'm conscious of time. I could quite happily chat forever, but this would, being a Friday, inevitably lead to a coffee and then beer with you. So, I'm going to say, I always say at the end of the shows that connecting people has real value. So, where can people find you? And I can put things in the show notes for them to look you up, say hi, or ask you about Hermann Hesse or anything else, or Buddhism, boxing.
Boxing, Buddhism, and oh my god, that's a nice idea for a Instagram page or something. Boxing, Buddhism, and Hess.
The boxing Buddha.
Yeah, or almost sounds like a law firm. Boxing Buddhism and Hess, something. I don't know. Yeah, so you can go to my the website for www.aldabicapital.ae. I think that's what it is. I have an Instagram handle. I think it's Alessio_DXB. Or you can email me as well at hrillo@aldabi.ae. Always happy to talk.
Awesome. I'll put those in the show note for everyone, and who knows, you'll get a shout out from someone who's listening or watching us right now. Dude, love you. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.